Hello, I'm Richard Gisbert, and you're at The Listening Post. This week, the biggest media player in Turkey and its battle with the government there. Who will come out on top? The government of Uganda, blaming the media for riots on the street. Sudan loosens the rules on censorship of the press, but the skeptics have their doubts. And Venezuela's got a problem with The Simpsons and Family Guy.
Watch.
Caracas is cracking down on cartoons. As we mentioned last week, there's a power struggle underway over the media in Turkey. On one side, the government of Prime Minister Tayyip Erdogan. On the other, Doğan Yayın, a company that controls roughly one-half of all the media outlets in that country. The stakes and the numbers are huge. The government has fined the company more than $2.5 billion for alleged tax irregularities. That's almost as much as Doğan Yayın is worth. And there's a political backdrop to this story. Earlier this year, Prime Minister Erdogan urged his supporters to boycott the company's newspapers after those papers were critical of his government. Our starting point this week is Turkey and a colossal tax fine that has Turks wondering who will control the media and has Brussels asking the question, is Turkey, with its questionable record on freedom of the press, ready to be part of the European Union? When a government fines a media giant billions of dollars, that news gets people talking.
It looks like it's an attempt to muzzle a critical press.
There is a very high intolerance to criticism on all sides of the political divide in Turkey.
I share the suspicion that this may indeed be politically motivated.
There are two figures at the center of this story. Prime Minister Tayyip Erdogan, leader of the Islamist AKP party, and Erdogan-Dogan, the founder and owner of the Doğan Yayın media powerhouse. He controls newspapers, including the major dailies Hürriyet, Milliyet, and Posta, as well as national TV channels Kanal D and Star TV. And Doğan co-owns CNN Turk with Time Warner.
He covers the range of political opinions in Turkey, from the liberal left to the centrist and to the conservative right wing, including nationalistic ideas in Turkey.
The fact that Doğan Group owns half of the Turkish print and broadcast media is certainly a great concentration of ownership, and many people are critical that the Doğan Group has such a large stake in the media.
When Tayyip Erdogan first came to power in 2002, he and the media titan were getting along. By 2006, when Erdogan's government blocked a Doğan real estate development in Istanbul, things were heading downhill.
And thereafter, the relationship began to deteriorate. The Doğan media seems to have taken a tougher, more robust, muscular approach in criticizing the Turkish Prime Minister.
There are elements of it being a struggle between two very powerful people, and Erdogan does not brook opposition or criticism lightly.
By 2008, Doğan's media outlets were printing and airing stories about a corruption scandal, the so-called Deniz Feneri case, linking it all the way to the Prime Minister's office. Then Erdogan called for a boycott of Doğan's newspapers, and the company suddenly attracted the attention of the government's tax authorities.
Some people suspect also that Doğan might not have paid his taxes properly. But considering the fact that Prime Minister Erdogan has accused the Doğan Group for spreading lies and disinformation about his government, people think that this may have some sort of political motivation.
So there are very strong suspicions that this is designed to strongly punish and perhaps eliminate the Doğan Group as a media presence in Turkey.
Doğan's not saying much about the mega tax fine, but there are signs the company is caving into the pressure. The editors of Doğan's two largest print assets, Milliyet and Hürriyet, have been replaced. Other media groups have been strangely, perhaps tactically, silent.
Some of them are fearing that the turn may be theirs in the future, but some may be happy to see their greatest rival disappear. if, of course, it's going to disappear at the end of this process.
Should the Dogan group collapse, there is a real possibility that the significant media assets of the Dogan group could be redistributed by the Turkish authorities to more friendly groups in Turkey.
Keeping a close eye on all of this is the European Commission. Opponents of Turkey's application for EU membership have criticized the Erdogan government for repressive media laws, and Erdogan's treatment of Dogan will do nothing to alleviate that criticism.
The EU Commission has made a declaration saying that this fine is against press freedom, and suppression of press freedom in Turkey does not go so well with Copenhagen political criteria.
I think there is genuine concern in Europe and indeed in the United States. Nobody's trying to interfere in the tax-related issue, but there is some concern about what's seen as a sort of drift towards slight autocratic tendencies in the Erdogan government.
However, the EU might want to look at the bigger media picture in Turkey. Is it healthy for a country, any country, to have more than half its media output in the hands of a single company, a company that also has major stakes in energy, manufacturing, trade, and tourism?
According to surveys in Turkey, only 25% of the Turkish public have any trust in the media in Turkey, and it's precisely because of the direct interweaving of media interests with commercial objectives and political considerations.
So what's the solution? In this case, there actually is one. It's called regulation.
The government should curb this concentration of ownership, and for this to happen, I've strongly urged the government to pass legislation to ban cross-ownership, which means media owners should have only radio and television and not newspapers.
Instead, politicians like Tayyip Erdogan use the carrot and stick approach, wooing big media with carrots when they get good coverage, and when they don't, giving them stick. In this case, $2.5 billion tax dollars worth of stick. Here's how our Global Village Voices see the media story in Turkey.
$3.5 billion sounds huge money. I do not know how it's been calculated, whether it's more or less than the tax they originally owe. Yeah, I heard the news last week on radio. Thinking now, it must be difficult to collect taxes during financial crisis.
I think this court case is going to be a test for Turkish democracy. I do fear that there will be no winners in this case, because if no pure facts are shown, it's going to look like a bias and an argument, the argument between the secularists and the pro-AKP. But it is going to be a testing point for the Turkish government and for Turkish democracy in general.
If you'd like to join our growing list of Global Village Voices, you can let us know by emailing us at listeningpost@aljazeera.net. But most contributors just go on Facebook and hook up with us through the Listening Post page there. We have more than 2,200 viewers now signed up. You can also follow us through Twitter. We will let you know via Facebook and Twitter what stories we're working on and how you can add your voice to the mix. We're going to take you to Uganda in the second half of the broadcast, and our News Bite section is also heavy with media news from Africa. The president of Sudan has ordered the immediate end to state censorship of the media. President Omar al-Bashir, still wanted by the International Criminal Court for war crimes in Darfur, made that announcement via Sudan's official media outlet, the Suna News Agency. Suna reported that the pre-censorship system by which the authorities would screen newspapers before their publication is no longer in force. The change was made ahead of next year's parliamentary and presidential elections, Sudan's first in nearly 25 years, but not everyone buys the move as genuine. And the deputy editor-in-chief of Sudan's Ajaras al-Hurriya newspaper said, quote, "There is no way they," meaning the government, "are going to tolerate anything about security or about the International Criminal Court," unquote. The Kenyan government is proposing to limit access to the country's crowded airwaves, and private media owners are not happy. Under a new media law, the government wants to limit all private broadcasters in television and radio to just one frequency, one channel. The new rules would not apply to state-funded broadcasters. Private media owners say the law will pave the way for a virtual public monopoly of Kenya's media. The government has also announced that local channels will make the move from analog to digital broadcasting in Kenya in 2012, which is fine for viewers who have the right equipment, but not so good for Kenyans with older television sets. Across the Atlantic now to Central America, the government of Honduras, which was installed after a coup this past June, has issued a decree allowing it to suspend freedom of speech, ban political demonstrations, and suspend media groups for what the government calls, quote, disturbances of the peace, unquote. The move follows the return of the ousted elected president, Manuel Zelaya, to Honduras. Zelaya has taken refuge in the Brazilian embassy in Tegucigalpa. The new military-backed president, Roberto Micheletti, has shut down Radio Globo and Cholusat Sur, two stations that have been critical of him and the government. There's been a bit of a brouhaha in Britain over a recent BBC interview with Prime Minister Gordon Brown. The interviewer, Andrew Marr, asked the Prime Minister a question that's been speculated upon in the right-wing blogosphere.
A lot of people in this country use prescription painkillers and pills to help them get through. Are you one of those people?
No, I think
that Brown had been taking antidepressants to deal with falling poll numbers and the pressures of his job. Brown's supporters said Marr's question was out of line. BBC watchers say they detect some signs of a move to the right by the state-funded broadcaster. They point to the Brown interview as well as a debate that the Beeb has coming up that will include the far-right leader of the controversial British National Party. One of these days, we're going to do a story on a new film called South of the Border. It's the work of the American director, Oliver Stone, about Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez and the way he's been depicted in the U.S. media. But Chavez has some domestic media issues of his own. Last year, Chavez's government forced the American cartoon series The Simpsons out of prime time and into a late-night spot after the show was deemed inappropriate for children. Now comes word that another popular animated sitcom from the U.S., Family Guy, has been banned from the Venezuelan airwaves. Chavez's justice minister took exception to an episode that he said promoted the illegal use of marijuana. If he's not careful, President Chavez, who has his own talk show called Allo Presidente, might find himself the only animated character left on Venezuelan TV. We're back after the break with a piece on Uganda, where the media have been blamed for political unrest.